I'm sitting here just reflecting over 10.5 years of living with stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer. When I can take a deep breath just like that and breathe out, and there's no wheezing there, I can't help but to feel so thankful. Thankful that in 2014, when I was diagnosed, I went into the clinic, the local clinic, after I got out of the hospital, and they said, here begins your cancer journey, because this is what we discovered in these 2 weeks of all these tests. You have stage 4 cancer. But that local doctor did not know what the biomarkers were. She didn't, because she started me on the CAR PIM mix intravenous chemotherapy. I knew that something had to change and something was different. So I went to the university healthcare, and there is where I discovered options. And that's what it's all about when we push for these trials and treatments. Are there any options? And there were options for me. I knew it deep down. Something was wrong. And I went out on that. And I discovered that there were targeted therapies just for me, just for my type of cancer. So that's why it's important to know your biomarkers. I understood that I was out positive. There were treatments for me, and then there were trials that accompanied that kind of therapy. Even though that kind of trial didn't work at that time, it's okay. Something inside me said, keep going. I stayed connected to the university healthcare, where there are people there studying your kind of cancer, your kind of disease, your kind of illness, whatever it is, there is always hope. You just got to take the initiative, take the step, take the support, reach out, and you'll find a community. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You'll find a community of people just like you, seeking to know more about medicine, seeking to know more about who you are as a person, seeking to know more so that we all can heal. We had a great conversation today about clinical trials. I'm so glad that I've decided to participate in the NVL 655 clinical trial, and it's working for me. The cancer, the tumors are shrinking, and I stay surrendered. I stay surrendered. I stay surrendered and stay hopeful. Yes, I am in cycle 4. I'm heading to cycle 5 this week. I'm excited to be able to share that with you, but I hope that you grow with me. And check this next segment out.
Let's talk about the screening process. So Tony, I'm going to start with you. Can you share your experience about the screening process itself? And was that something that was stressful for you? Did you feel supported? Kind of give me that experience.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. For me, the screening was the next step. Because like I mentioned, I had failed my first 2 lines of defense. Because I was at UNC Chapel Hill Medical Center, they offer a lot of different types of screenings and trials that they do on their own. So my screening wasn't sponsored by biopharma or industry. So I was part of a university program that they were working on. And so because my oncologist was heading up that, because UNC is a teaching hospital, it was easy for me to be screened. I didn't have to go through anything, just do I want to participate, yes or no. And it was just that easy. But you always have that anxiety because you never know. Whatever you're participating in, you want to see that desired result at the end. And that is to be completely made whole and healed. And so going into any of these things, you're always going to have apprehension. but it's the next step. And you come this far. So I came that far. So screening was easy for me, and to participate in that trial was a no-brainer for me.
Right. No, absolutely. And that just brings up to a point that I think Shyreece even made earlier too, about where to go and where you can access clinical trials, right? A lot of times, oftentimes it is going to be a large academic research center. But not everybody has that. So there are some local sites out there as well. We just have to kind of get that knowledge to the community about where these sites exist. But absolutely going to a larger research center like a UNC is going to definitely be one of those things where you get a lot of that comprehensive care that you want. So I do want to ask this to you, LaTisha. When you were going through the screening process, did you have any hesitancy about the screening process? Also, more importantly, were there any barriers for you, say with transportation, or did you have to travel far? What was that experience like for you just with the screening?
Okay, so with the screening, so I've been in hospitality, so it was hard to get my schedule to go with the availability of the times. So I had to wait a little longer than anticipated to get my first appointment to even go in to, get the first information on everything I needed to do because of my work schedule. So that was pretty hard. And it was probably like 15 or 16 miles away. And I don't drive. So those different things, were barriers for me when I started the screening process.
Thank you for being transparent about that. And oftentimes when I'm speaking, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, is that those are barriers that exist and can prevent you from actually going on a clinical trial. Maybe you are eligible, but if you can't get there, and we know trials, you tend to have to go more often than when you would for your standard care because it's just more comprehensive. They're doing a lot of data collection. And so these are things that I know the medical community and especially the research community is looking into when they develop protocols into how can we build these added costs that are going to affect our participants to be able to support them in that, right? Whether it's transportation, whether it's lodging, food, childcare, all those things that we know exist. So thank you, LaTisha, for being transparent about that. Thank you so much. And so my next question is going to be regarding the actual treatment. Okay, this is where I know. And so again, this conversation is specific to the Black and African American community participating in clinical trials. So one of those barriers, hesitations, and mistrust issues come into the intervention itself. So this question is going to go out to the participants who received an intervention, investigational drug, or investigational procedure. I'm going to start with Shyreece, because Shyreece, you shook your head like, girl, I have the answer for you. So what can you tell me about the information you received when you were told about the clinical trial and what your treatment was going to be? And did you feel, and if you did, it's totally fine, did you feel like you were some test subject or some guinea pig when they were telling you this information? It's an honest, safe space here with the patient story.
When I heard about the NVL 655, which is a clinical trial for advanced stage 4 cancer, which I have been having for 10.5 years, mind you, for someone to come and tell me after fighting that long that we got something for you. I've been watching it. This is how my doctor is speaking to me. I've been watching your cancer. I've been watching you and getting to know you. So I think that this is good for you. So the doctor-patient trust was already there because I trusted him along the journey just by other things that he was doing. He said, well, we're going to counteract your cancer this way. We're going to try this, slow it down. But the resistant mutations are always going to pop up. But I got something for you. We're just going to wait. So what he was trying to do, okay, Tiffany, was get his clinic ready to receive all of the foundation, the structure, the resources needed to accommodate me in that trial as much as they could. I did ask about transportation and all those barriers because I would have to go every week. It was an investigational drug, and I'm a power horse. If it's hope attached to it, then I'm gonna try it. Okay, so, and I'm not influenced by culture. I'm not influenced by none of that. I'm influenced by my trust first in God, and then in my trust in, I had discernment to know that through the actions of my doctor. Like I said, I can't speak for everybody, because if you don't have that connection and trust with your doctor, I say find another one. But yes, the NVL 655 clinical trial, I had no problem with going into that because it was fully explained. I knew what my risks were. They sent it to me by email. I had a month before I signed the consent form. I was very well informed, and I knew that he was waiting on that trial for me.
Here's the question that's really going to need some unpacking, okay? Especially in the Black and African American community, when it comes to treatment, we don't really understand placebo, right? Especially when it comes to interventions like cancer or chronic conditions. And so before I even get into that, to clarify, because there is a clarifying point about that, I'm gonna start with you, Gwendolyn. What were your thoughts, and what are your thoughts? You can still have these thoughts as well. What are your thoughts on placebo-controlled clinical trials?
After someone tell you you got 15 months to live, you like, whatever you can do to keep me alive and to see my grandchildren grow up,
Come on, somebody.
you gonna do whatever you have to do. I was at the point after the doctor told me 16 months to live, I knew I had some more living to do. She said, you have to trust the team. You got to trust God first, then you got to trust the team, the medical team. And I trusted MD Anderson. I met Dr. Jan. She was a doctor I met I'm with an organization called Survivor. And I met her at a retreat, and she was a doctor at MD Anderson. And I was going to another hospital at the time. And I used to be a case manager. So I was out there I was having so many issues as a case manager. I needed a case manager. So I was at the retreat and I was crying to her. I was like, they don't really care about the Black women. They don't care about the women in my community. And she said, she looked across that table and she said, I care. Call me when you get back. And when I say she have been true to her word, and I reached out to her and I said, hey, I need to know some things about clinical trials. She let her team reach out to me. And hey, it's all about trust.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely.
Can I say one more thing real quick? What the study coordinator gave me her personal cell phone number. So I knew I was gonna be in good hands.
Right. And so what often happens too is when you do go on a clinical trial, you do get more comprehensive care. You just do, because again, we're collecting data. So it's not just, okay, come here and get treated. It's like, no, we really want to know, is this working for you? Right. And maybe it doesn't, but guess what? It may work for the next person or the next patient. And so these experiences, again, is what this program really is about, because I want to really express shared experiences when it comes to clinical trials, because we don't often get to see that experience, right? We only get to kind of read about it or hear about the bad things that happen. And so, Cayla, for you, I'm going to ask you too about placebo. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because this is going to be big. I'm telling you, this is going to be where people really listen. What do you think about placebos on clinical trials?
So automatically you go in there and you say, hey, we're going to try this trial and I'm going to be healed. That is the positive aspect, but not everyone is getting the medication. You may be getting the aspirin. And so you're not understanding that a placebo has to be in effect. So I think that a lot of people should go in there. First of all, try to do as much research as you can and try to also reach out to people, the staff or someone that you connect with or you have a rapport with on the team. Ask them. They can't really tell you. Sometimes they can't really tell you if you have a placebo. Of course, they can't tell you. It will mess up the trial, correct? So you might drop out. You might have emotional experiences, and it's just very overwhelming for you. So I think that we should know. However, we cannot know, of course, but I think that we should go in there knowing that, hey, I might receive the placebo and the next person next to me might receive the medication and they might get treated. And who knows, that person next to you might not, they may receive the treatment and it not work for them. So it's all about researching and trying your best, trying to understand as much as you can, because there's a lot of information out there and it discouraged everyone from trying to be a part of the trials. And people use these verbiage that a lot of the community don't know. A lot of us can relate to a fourth grade level using verbiage like that. But a lot of the staff members, they do not. And especially with our community, they look at us, hey, you don't know? Why don't you know? Instead of explaining in depth. So I think that I'm a little 50-50 with the placebo because I am proud of the trial, but I understand why the placebo is needed.
Right. So this is, I'm glad you said that, right? So this is what I always drive home. Anyone on a clinical trial, okay? Anyone on a clinical trial, you will never not get anything. That is just unethical. So if you go on a clinical trial, you are at least going to get the standard for your condition. You're never not going to get that. So what may happen is we will give you that standard in addition to whatever investigational drug we're researching, or you might get a placebo. And so oftentimes in our community, we think, well, they're not giving me anything. And this is like my last resort. So I'm just getting a placebo. I'm coming there getting a water pill, and I'm not getting my chemotherapy, or I'm not getting my pills to shrink my tumor or my fibroids, which is not true. Now, there are some placebo where, you're going to either get this or you're going to get that. And that's all. And that's something where, again, that's a decision that we have to make for ourselves and with our families, that we're not really willing to do that. We want to just do what the standard is. And so thank you for saying that, because I wanted an honest answer. You know what I mean? You all were honest answers, but that's a lot of oftentimes what I get is that, saying, well, I want to know what I'm getting. And we know in research that's just not always going to be possible. But and you can ask, if you are going into an office and they're offering you a clinical trial, say, what's the minimum I'm going to get? Am I going to get treated for my condition, no matter what it is? It's a headache or diabetes, whatever. Just say, but what is my alternative? And they should tell you that in the consenting process, what your alternatives are and what your the options you're going to be getting on that trial.